Welcome everybody to our third seminar hosted by the South African System Dynamics chapter. I hope everybody is safe where you are. And if you do require any assistance, please do let us know. So a little bit about our chapter. Our chapter hosts a series of free events largely. One of them are the seminars series and the student engagement workshops. We also have the Learning Hub, which is a free to enter competition / training series of workshops hosted by Dr. Andres Puerta as well as Coronet Deploy. Just a reminder in terms of the upcoming 13th annual South African System Dynamics chapter that is scheduled for the 6th to the 7th of November. You can find us on various social media links. And if you do go to our website, you'll find the registration details for our chapter. So I'm going to stop sharing at this point. And I'm going to introduce our spotlight for everybody. I'm going to now introduce our speaker for today. So Sharon-Drew Morgen is an original thinker and inventor of systemic change models for leadership, coaching, sales, change management, and learning. She has trained 100,000 people globally and coaches companies through systemic change using her unique change facilitation model that employs facilitative questions. It also employs systems listening and a 13-step change model that generates permanent change and buy-in without resistance. Sharon-Drew lives in Portland on a floating home on the Columbian River. So I will now hand over to Sharon. Sharon, please do let me know. Sharon-Drew, sorry. I will hand over to Sharon-Drew Morgen, who will indicate to me when she needs to have the slides shown on the screen, and then we'll take it from there.
And you're going to put me in speaker view now? Can we do that?
You are?
Am I in speaker view? Okay.
You can't see, but you are.
Good. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. Nalini introduced me. She said it all. There's nothing else to say. It's not true. So obviously, I'm not and my first name is Sharon-Drew. Both words, everybody, please. Obviously, I'm not a practitioner, and I'm not a mathematician, and I'm not a scientist. My thinking is very different from yours, and I invent systemic change models. I'll explain a lot about that later. Nalini found me almost a year ago. Nalini, it was a long time ago, when she saw a video of me teaching my learning facilitation model at Columbia University. I've invented a learning model that enables professors, trainers, speakers to generate new neural circuits in the learner's brain so they can not only translate what they say accurately, but will retain it over time. And people I've talked to that I've trained 30 years ago, 14 years ago, 26 years ago, still retain the knowledge because where I'm placing the knowledge in their brain is a circuit that will hold it in place and maintain it. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. When Nalini asked me to speak, I looked up system dynamics. I'm sorry, I didn't know about it. And I saw circles. And Nalini, you'll smile at this. I called you, Nalini, and I said, all these circles, how do people implement? And you said, right, that's the problem. And so she handed me over to Rebecca Niles. I had 4 meetings with Rebecca, including I sat in with the Tennessee Valley, something I sat in with her during a session with one of her clients. And then she handed me over to Fernando, and I did a 3-part workshop there. and now I'm here. So I put in about 100 hours understanding the system behind system dynamics and the structure. And I don't do what you do. You're doing the what and the why. My brain does the how, because I think from the origination point where behaviors are generated in the unconscious, in the brain. And it's actually Meadows 1 through 5. When I'm neurodiverse, I have autism. And my whole world as a child was crazy because I saw, hear, feel, everything is in systems. My life is in systems. So I began putting together models from the time I was a girl and studying best I could. And in the 1950s, they didn't have a lot of books on neuroscience. But I finally started taking neurolinguistic programming, and I studied and I learned Gregory Bateson's logical levels. And that was all systemic. That explained to me how all the hundreds of notebooks of ideas would come together if I put them in this systemic structure, which again, I think that way, but I didn't have a structure for it. And as you'll see, I'm going to introduce you to his work. You'll see where I got my ideas. And as Nalini has said, I have developed learning facilitation, change facilitation, buying facilitation. I've just developed all those models that I've trained to 100,000 people. What I'm going to say may seem to be challenging, but it's not, because I'm operating in the how, the unconscious. You're operating in the what and the why, because you're solving a problem. And I'm enabling that problem to fit into the system. And there are two different elements. So today I'm going to be showing you how I put together my thinking, the thinking that gets to the brain, that gets to the neural circuits, how behaviors are triggered, because behaviors are just expressions of the system. They don't exist on their own. They don't arise from the sea like Venus. They're triggered by a neural circuit that is ruled by the system, by the norms, by the beliefs, by the values, by the mental models of the system that then triggers the behavior. Behaviors are only beliefs in action. Okay? They're not standalone. And you can't change a behavior by trying to change a behavior. We're going to get to that, but that's something that we may disagree with, because I've heard a lot of system dynamics practitioners say that they have a belief that if they have all the right information, the client will know how to change their system. But once a behavior is expressed, the toothpaste is out of the tube. You can't put it back in to change the way the tube is constructed. So I do the how, you do the what and the why. And I think clients need both. Okay. So I'm going to be showing you how I think. You do a really good job at what you do, but what you're doing is not getting to the place in the client's system where they can adopt, implement, and execute. Now, they may have done that already by the time they get a hold of you, or you may believe, like I've heard almost all practitioners tell me, that it's not their job. If you don't think it's your job to help clients implement, that's fine. It's just that if they're not set up systemically to accept your data, they won't be able to. So I'm giving you what I know about systems, change, behaviors. And I'm going to say something that's a little bit unusual, maybe. The behavior, the problems that we notice when you're doing your what and why are considered problems, or the behaviors are considered problematic. But what if the behavior that's being exhibited that doesn't work for the client is the feature? What if it's not a flaw? What if it's a feature? Because if the behavior comes from the system, then what system is the problematic behavior coming from? That's a question. By the way, I can't see any of you, and it makes it so hard for me to teach. I mean, I'm old school. I'm used to doing everything in person. So I don't know how to be with this small group. I can't see you. And I do request that I can see your faces. That way I can see whether you're agreeing or not agreeing. That way I can take questions from you, because if you're not, oh, thank you, Elise. Hi. If I can't see you, I don't know whether you're not in the room and you come back to ask a question that I answered 10 minutes before. It's very confusing for me, and I'm an old lady, so we're going to try to take care of this little old lady so I can take care of you. If I can see your face, that would make me so much happier and I'd be better. Just saying. Change is systemic unless the entire system buys into something new. Until it understands the risk of change, it will do nothing, regardless of the importance of the information you're giving it. In my 100 hours of study, I didn't see any time did I see the word risk in the literature. It's possible that I was looking at the wrong stuff. Meadows doesn't mention it at all. So I think risk should be part of a discussion, because a system seeks systems congruence, as Rudolph will tell you. If the system believes it's possible it's going to be destructed and it's going to be chaotic, the system won't accept anything different. So one of the things that in the how area the client has to do is make sure it's set up to accept something new, so there won't be disruption. To enable execution, a client has to get to their unconscious core structure, their norms, beliefs, mental models, values that triggered the current behavior, and either reprogram the source so it triggers something different, or generate an entirely new neural circuit so it can express something new. Remember, behaviors are just expressions, and if you want a different behavior, you need a different neural circuit, or a changed neural circuit, or a new neural circuit. So all of my work and what I'm going to be telling you today is how I get systemically to the unconscious so that we can change or fix whatever the problem is at the systemic level. So when your what and why comes in, there's a place for it to fit. And I understand you might not like anything I'm telling you, but I think it's worth considering. Today, I'm going to explain the how, which is 1 through 5 of Meadows. Now, Meadows has 12 points, and she spends 28 pages on 6 through 12. Why she labels them 12, 11, 10 backwards, I have no idea, but she explains 6 through 12 in 28 pages, and then 1 through 5 in 2 pages. Because until my work, there's been no way to get to the unconscious. Meadows knew that you had to get to the unconscious to make the change. She just didn't know how to do it. So I'm going to show you how my model does that. I'm not aware of any others. There may be, but I'm going to show you a way to do that systemically. I can help the client get to their neural circuitry where their behaviors are generated and decisions are made. It uses a different form of question. There's a plane overhead. We get fighter jets that go over here, and they sometimes break the I can't hear myself speak. We use different forms of questions. I spent 10 years inventing a new form of question that gets directly to the neural circuits in the brain. There's a new form of listening. We have different goals, and we don't understand. We don't gather information. You do that. We work together, the how, the what, and the why. We don't do that. I show them, teach them with my questions how to get directly to the neural circuits where their own answers are stored. Okay? From what I present today, I think you'll see that clients need to have done this in order to execute. All right, let's start with the how and the what and the why differences.
Okay, would you like me to
Yeah.
project?
Yes, please.
Okay, you're on.
No, there's a how, number 3, please. There. Okay. Look at the differences between the how, the what, and the why. Remember, what we're doing is different. Mine gets to the brain, yours is solving problems. Strategic versus tactical, systems driven versus information behavior problem driven. I'm working with the neural circuitry. You're working with the mind, with historic assumptions from everybody and the problem. I'm working with only the structure. You're working with the content. Mine has to have full stakeholder involvement, because without full stakeholder agreement, and they can't understand the risks and they can't buy into the change. And they're responsible for changing any of the beliefs and norms and values that would have to be changed for the new information to come in. And yours is content driven, okay? So take a look at these. Planes are going, there must be a war going on somewhere. That's a joke. There's a lot of wars. Fighter jets are going over here. Because I live on a river, all the sound vibrates. All right, take a look at these. And as you're reading them, let me say categorically, because the implementation, the how, involves systemic participation and buy-in for change, clients will have no ability to execute new content unless those who will carry out the new have approved of it and the system can maintain systems congruence. Okay, because without systems congruence, the system will resist. That's the system's job, to maintain systems congruence. The how, the what, and the why work together. All right. All right. Can we go? Are we done? Have you looked at that one? Have you finished with that yet? I can't see your faces. Rudolph, have you finished with this?
Say again, what is what?
Have you? I don't see you. Have you read this? I would love to see what. Yes. Do you have any questions about this?
No, not at this stage.
You've
All right,
got
you
a
like it?
thumbs up, so everyone's quite happy for you to go ahead.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Now the direction of. Let's take a look at this. This is what I learned from Gregory Bateson, and this changed my life because after decades of thinking in systems and not knowing where to put them, this gave me the structure I needed. So first of all, the pink is unconscious. The yellow is conscious. I'm working in the how in the pink. You're working in the skills, behaviors, the environment. I'm working in the identity and the beliefs. Okay? It goes down. It doesn't go up. So you can't change. If you change a behavior, it does not change the identity or the beliefs, because the beliefs and identity are what trigger the behaviors. So I'm working in the top part. You're working in the bottom part. The client needs both to give you the full data set, understand how to execute without risk, and bring in all that wonderful work you're doing so there's a complete cycle. Because right now, a lot of the clients, some of the clients have done this already, and sometimes you don't care whether they do or not, which is, I've heard from so many practitioners that I've interviewed, that it's the client's responsibility. It's not their responsibility. You may believe that, which means everything I'm telling you doesn't matter. But if you care about client execution, this is what they need. They need both the unconscious and the conscious, the identity and beliefs, the how, and the why and the what. Can you give me the next slide, please, Nalini? So here's Meadows. And I want you to take a look at Meadows, because Meadows says everything that I'm saying. She doesn't tell you how. I'm going to tell you how. But you'll see the match. The rules of the system define, where's the rest of that? The rules of the system define the output. I think that looks like it's missing. The goals are the goals of the system. Okay, here she talks about systems. And you'll see they match. So everything I'm telling you today matches Meadows 1 through 5. Okay, can we go on to the next one? All right. Fernando made this for me. In all my life, I could never have figured this out because I don't think this way. So this is the same thing as Meadows and Bateson. The identity. Who am I? What am I doing? What are my goals? That's the skin. That's the structure. That's the identity. That's what holds it all in place. The structure, the beliefs, the norms, the values, the mental models, the culture. So if I am a vegetarian, I believe I shouldn't eat meat. Okay, so my beliefs come from my identity. Then there's the skills that bring the structure and the identity into action, into behaviors, into the content, into the information. So the content is the result of the structure and the identity. Does anyone have any problems with that? Silence? Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, this is important because these are the rules. These are my rules of systems, okay? From the how standpoint, not from the what and why, but from the how. The rules of the system define the outputs. So if I believe I'm a vegetarian and shouldn't eat meat, I won't eat meat. And if you try to give me meat, I would have to either change my system, change my rules. So I'm a healthy person and I work out so many times a week. And if I wake up one day, this is a true story, if I wake up one day and I don't want to go to the gym, I say to myself, okay, do you want to not be a healthy person today? Most of the time say, oh, okay, I'll get up. But every once in a while I go, no, today I'm a fun person. Today I'm a cheating person. And I have pizza and I don't go to the gym. I might have ice cream. So I always refer back to my system for my behaviors. A system, you know, this one is a group of elements that agree to the same rules. Behaviors are expressions of and originate from the system. The system, the neural circuit, triggers the action to express it. Okay, that's where behaviors come from. They don't arise from the sea. Changing behaviors cannot change the system that generated them. If anybody's interested in learning more about that, I can send you the link that from my learning facilitation program of my presentation at Columbia last year. New rules generate new behaviors to express them. So when you want different behaviors, you change the rules at the systemic level. You change the system and they'll give you different behaviors. Change isn't considered, excuse me, change isn't considered at all unless an incongruence is acknowledged. So all of the dozens of people that I've talked to, practitioners that I've talked to, think they're doing just fine and they don't care whether the client executes. There's no incongruence there. They have nothing to learn from me. That's their system. And change is not acceptable if the risk of change is higher than the risk of maintaining the status quo. So if any of you want to add any of this to what you're doing, it would just sit on the top. But even if you want to add something, that's a risk. That's a risk to what you're doing, maybe. If you're going to add something new and learn something new, it's risk to what you're doing now. If you've already been training hundreds of people on the what and the why, and you're thinking of adding the how, that's a risk. Whether it's great material or not, doesn't matter. It's a risk. The risk has to be lower than maintaining the status quo. And risk is a very big topic. I talked about it a lot in the last workshops I did. And change must match the structure, the mental models, or it will be resisted. And if the client doesn't know whether it matches or not, it's a risk and it won't. Okay, next. Next slide, please. So here's the way systems are risked or are at risk. Unless all voices are included or represented, you can't gather accurate data. Systems will resist change unless they identify their new goals and needs that match the structure. So any new goals that would create new behaviors must match the beliefs, norms, mental model. I mean, Meadows tells you this. Any risk to the system must be known and accommodated for before change can occur. So if you're giving them all these wonderful pieces of content and you've solved their problem and they've given you millions of dollars and you spent 4 months doing all this work, if they don't understand the risk to that department or these people or that technology, they can't use it. So they have to know all that first, and then you would use that data that they've gleaned from their process, the how process, as part of your what and why. And by attempting to change a behavior, by changing a behavior, you will get automatic resistance because you're putting the toothpaste back in the tube and it doesn't go back because it's already been triggered. So many change management models try to change. I mean, behavior change. People try to 21 days of stopping smoking. They're trying to change a behavior. By trying to change a behavior, there's a 3% success rate for all behavior modification because it doesn't get to the neural circuits where the system generates the behavior. Okay? Change is driven by the structure. Model the system, not the problem, or you'll get resistance. And I know this is opposite of what you folks talk about. You say model the problem, not the system. But the problem, I don't know, might be a feature that was generated because it's using a different circuit and just the circuit has to be changed. The problem, what is the problem? The problem has been generated. I don't know, was there a different group that's been involved that created a different circuit and a different system to create different behaviors? That's where the problem is, not the problem that shows up. The problem that shows up is an expression of the system. So in my map of the world, I know it's different from what you're thinking, but you're thinking in the what, why, I'm telling you from the how and the neural circuits. Change is driven by the structure. So sometimes you have to change the structure to get new behaviors. Sometimes you have to generate a new structure altogether. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next one. Please, thank you. So here are the assumptions that I make. Thinking and the how in what I consider to be the system of change with working with the brain. The structure generates the output. Behaviors are expressions of the system. You can't change behaviors by trying to change behaviors. To gather accurate data, all elements must share knowledge. People can't hear each other accurately. I wrote a book on this. Words are only puffs of air. They have no intrinsic meaning whatsoever. They have no meaning until the brain translates them. Just like light, the whole world is gray. I don't know if, I'm sure you know this. The whole world is gray, and we don't see color except it's translated in the cones and rods in our eyes. It's the same with sound. Sound vibrations get turned into electrochemical signals that then get dispatched. And the brain sends into what they call similar enough circuits. I don't know what similar enough means. So wherever they send the sound vibrations, electrochemical, oh, forgot to tell you, when the sound vibrations enter, when your words enter, dopamine hits them and they start dispersing, and they delete some stuff before they're even made into signals. There's already a deletion. Once they're sent or dispatched to a neural circuit, the neural circuit takes the overage that's not the same as what's been there before and deletes it, which means we're only always hearing what we've heard before because we have no place else to translate it. That's one of the reasons I developed my learning model, to generate new neural circuits so they can hear the new content accurately. And this is very sad news. I'm sorry. We only accurately hear 10 to 35% of what the speaker intends. So you're posing questions that they're not understanding accurately. They're giving you answers that you're not understanding accurately. So I don't know what the accuracy level is, but it's not good. I just want you to know that. Questions. I'm writing a book on this. Questions are biased by the words, goals, needs, verbalization of the asker. We don't know how the listener is hearing it or where it's going in their brain. So we don't know what percent of data they're giving us is accurate. So one of my assumptions is people aren't hearing each other and we're not necessarily asking the right questions. You can't fix a problem using the same elements that caused it. That's just Einstein, you know that. The system with the problem must drive the change. So the change has to be driven by the client and their norms, beliefs, values, mental models, not by the practitioner, in my humble opinion. That's from the brain. That's the how. Risk is reduced with buy-in and inclusion. The risk of change must be less than the risk of staying the same. Change must comply with the rules and structure of the system, or it will be rejected. Systems must maintain systems congruence. Now, again, I'm working from the how and the systems and the strategic. You're working from the tactical and the what and the why. So I know on my other program, I had another slide of the system dynamic assumptions, which were quite different, but we don't have time for that today. So I'm just giving you my assumptions. Okay, so now we're going to get into, does anyone have any questions so far? Because I gave you a lot, and since I can't see anybody, I don't even know what to do here. Does anyone have a burning question?
I don't see any questions for you, so I suggest we continue.
Okay, so everyone agrees with me, right? Otherwise, you'd challenge me. Oh, thank you. I'm glad. I'm hoping you're learning something.
Sorry, Sharon-Drew. You've got
Yes.
a hand from Tabo.
Okay.
Tabo, you can go ahead. Tabo? We can't hear you.
Hi.
Hi.
There you are.
You can hear me now. I
Now
just
we
want
can.
you to, may you please elaborate more when you say change is driven by the new structure. So I'm asking from the point of whereby now maybe the business is not being profitable, or they are implementing processes that are not of beneficiating to them. So if we change the structure, does it mean that if we change the leader, then it will change, or what?
I don't know. I can't answer that question because you're again doing what and why and acting on behavior. What would need to happen is the group would need to get together, and we start with the identity. We're going to go through the 13 steps of change now and figure out if they have new goals and what the new norms and beliefs and mental models of those new goals are, and then understand what the risk of changing from the old goals would be, and then figure out how you would get buy-in from everybody. And along the way, during the brainstorming, and I'll discuss this next, you would come up with ideas of what could change that would fix the problem. And then you would have to understand the risks of each, because if the risk is too high, they won't accept it. All right. So which one of your goals, your new goals, which one of your new norms or beliefs are acceptable to everybody? And then get everybody to buy in. And once you have this new structure, then new behaviors automatically appear. I'm going to tell you a very, very, very quick story. I was 30 pounds overweight for years, and I read all the books. I had pictures of skinny people on my refrigerator. I followed all the diets. I did everything I was supposed to do. I would lose 10 pounds, 15 pounds. I'd put it back. And finally, I said, decades I did this. And I said, this is not working. So I was beginning to work with Bateson's logical levels. And then I went, all right, so who am I? And I went, I'm a healthy person. And I went, okay, what do you believe is true if you see yourself as a healthy person? So I said, well, I would need to be healthy body, mind, and spirit. Again, these were mine, personal. They might not be yours, but they were mine. I need to be healthy body, mind, and spirit. So as my body healthy person, I went to a nutritionist and had all kinds of blood tests and discovered all these food allergies that I never knew I had. And once I changed my eating to match my food allergies, I lost 30 pounds in 2 months. And that was 30 years ago. I have stayed 30 pounds less for all these decades because I don't eat the foods I'm allergic to. Very simple. So having the problem means you have to go back to find what the structure is, where that, or you don't even need to know where it's coming from. You just have to develop a wholly new structure that matches the new goals that you want to have, and the new behaviors fall out automatically. Okay, so when you're doing the what and the why without the how, you're missing the systemic change piece. And that's why some clients aren't implementing. So if you want to implement, you would add this piece to what you're doing. You don't have to change what you're doing. You would just add the front end. You could even have a team that has implementation, facilitation skills, and they can be hired out in case clients as a team on their own as an upsell for clients who want to implement. They would go in first, do all this work with the client, then you come in and do the what and the why. Client needs both. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Yes, it does. Thanks.
Okay,
Okay.
great. I think we have another hand. It's from a lazy.
Hi, Lacey. Thanks for all your help, by the way.
Thank you, Sharon-Drew. Can you hear me, by the way?
And I can even see you. Yay. Thank you. Yes.
There you go. So I was wondering actually about what you said, that there is I will call it communication gap maybe, but in the sense of what we hear is not exactly what people say, right? So I was wondering that maybe, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but part of the disagreement that perhaps exists between what you provide, I'll call it like theory, your beliefs, your perspective of the world, and that of the system dynamicists, partly comes from the idea of what is a system. So I understand that you provided this definition. A system is a group of elements that agree to the same rules. And maybe you could elaborate on that. And if we have the time, we can get into what exactly is a system, maybe for the system dynamicist that often works with material physical systems, not exactly involving humans.
From what I've seen from practitioners, and I've only talked to maybe 30 of them, certainly not the universe of practitioners, but practitioners seem to be interested in the problem that's presenting and only ask questions about the problem itself and do their work and your causal loops and your leverage points around the problems that you see, and you're not getting to the entire system involved. So that's what's different between what practitioners are doing at the what and the why level. They're not adding the how. In terms of a system, when I was eating the wrong foods, my system said if I followed the plans that everyone says, I believed in conventional wisdom. So I followed conventional wisdom. And I didn't lose the weight because I wasn't addressing my real problem, which was systemic, was that I had an allergy, lots of them. So once I went back to the beginning and developed new beliefs and goals and whatever around who I am at the identity level, then the behaviors emerged from there. So a system is anything, any grouping of elements that agree to the same rules. So if I went to work for IBM, I would last for 5 minutes because I wouldn't wear a suit. I wouldn't do what they told me to. I wouldn't fit. I would have to work. So I work for myself, or I work for small startups because I can wear jeans and I can. So behaviors come from the identity and beliefs of the system. And a system is made up of whatever rules, norms, goals that they develop themselves. Am I answering your question?
Yes, you are. And I think that now maybe I see more clearly the differences between like the system dynamics perspective and maybe Sharon-Drew's perspective in this sense. Maybe we have the time to discuss more about it, being time-wise right now.
And you know what? Maybe if I'm done, we can. But you can email me, and we can have it. If anyone has questions about this, please email me at Sharon-Drew@SharonDrewMorgen.com, and I'll answer questions, and we can have dialogues if you want. I'm happy to be available. All right, let's get to the biggest
you've
piece.
got, sorry, Sharon-Drew, you've got, you had one more hand from Asma. Asma, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hello. I'm sorry, I cannot open the camera. I'm outside, but I also wanted to follow up with the Lacey question about the point of view of the dynamist, and I was thinking like, do you think the participatory or adding that part to the system dynamic could be the solution that you were thinking about the facilitation, or it's something different like I just don't know how it's going to be the practicality of modeling the whole system. That's also another point that I'm thinking. That's I see their point of view, but I wanted to see how you think practically that could be happening in the system.
So let's do the next one, because the next one I lead you to every single step that the client has to take. Will that help you?
Yeah, sure.
Let's do that. And if it still doesn't answer the question, we only got 9 minutes. Email me and we'll talk. Okay. So I'm going to look at the steps of change, and the ones that I have in hand here are a little bit more robust. So the first one is everything and everyone in the present state has to be assembled. I talked to Paco, and he said he did a big thing with we had 5 generals show up, And I went, well, what about the privates and the majors and the sergeants? And he said, oh, well, we didn't need them. Well, yeah, you can't understand the whole system with just this generals. So there must be a representation, even if it's the head of a department, a representation of every part of the current existing system. And once you have them, you ask, what would you now have if all we need is in place? What would we now have if all that we need is in place? And then iterate until there's across the board agreement. Okay, so you have to start off with who you are. What is your purpose? What is your goal? And everyone in all the departments, even if it's one person that's heading up a whole department of 10,000 people, you need that one person. Everyone has to agree on the same goals and the same norms and the same beliefs. So you have to set up your system with the people that are going to be using the new later, because otherwise they'll resist it. That's why you don't get implementation, because they're saying, well, no, I don't want to do that. You didn't ask me. I didn't put in my goals. That's not one of my goals. So you need everyone to agree. Now, it's a lot easier than you'd think, because what I do is we iterate up, we chunk up to the highest general good of all. So I may not want to give you $10,000 to make it better, but if we all agree that we all need to live in safe shelter, I can give you one of my buildings instead of the money. I mean, I made that up. Okay, the next one. You have to discuss the possible implications of the goals you're discussing in terms of risk, readiness, and disruption of change. Then you ask, what would cause you not to attain this now? What has stopped us from attaining this now? Because whatever was in the way of us getting success before is going to rear up again unless we go back and look at that which has stopped it from the beginning. Okay, again, you have to make sure everyone is on board here. So what we're doing is we're ending up with a system that everyone agrees to. So there's no resistance, because with resistance, you're not going to get execution. The third one, consider the risks of change to attain the new goal. And what is needed for buy-in? This is where there's brainstorming. What would change here? Would you have to hire 6 more people? Would you have to get rid of that technology? What would change? And how does that fit in with our goals? Is the risk too high? What are the norms that hold it in place? Are we going to lose people? Is there a time factor? These risks to change have to be addressed, or they're going to rear their heads up later on. Number 4, identify the risks of each proposed change. What's the fallout? How can we achieve buy-in without resistance? If the risk is worthwhile, reach consensus regarding beliefs, values, and norms that must be upheld. Remember, without systems congruence, you've got resistance and no execution. The system is king. It has to be maintained. System congruence has to be maintained. If it's too risky, is there a way to make it less risky? As long as they match the beliefs and goals. Who are we as a group and a company that must be maintained? What goals can we meet with manageable risks? So once you see all the risks, you might have to change the goal a bit. Gee, maybe we don't get total customer service this year. Maybe we can just get 6 departments doing good customer service this year and build in the next year because there's less risk. I'm telling you, risk is a very big piece that has to be discussed, because where it's not, I'm missing a page here. Okay. You have to get stakeholder agreement. You have to brainstorm. That's number 5. Number 6, brainstorm possible new outputs and behaviors to match the new beliefs. What new behaviors and actions would match our beliefs and resolve the problem? Do they match our values? What would we have to do differently? How can we manage these risks? Number 7 is confirm buy-in by all who will touch the new solution before implementing. Has the risk been managed? Are the stakeholders on board for the change? Are values incorporated? 8, form implementation groups. 9, brainstorm and research what stakeholders in each department must add or shift to achieve their goals. What do they have to add and do differently? 10, a full representation of choices to choose the best resources to achieve the goal. Brainstorm what's necessary to learn and implement. Choose leaders to manage and implement, and decide on how follow-up will be managed. I did it with 3 minutes left. This is what the client has to do so that when you give them your findings, they have a place for it to fit. Not only that, there's information in here in terms of your what and why that you could use when doing your research and figuring out your causal loops. And leverage points. There's a lot of leverage points in here. How did I do? I did it in an hour, Nalini.
Well done. Perfectly well timed.
Here's my email address and my site. Thank you. So clapping. On my site, more clapping. Thank you. On my, I hope you all learned. I hope you all learned something. The heart. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. On my site, Sharon-Drew.com, my book, What, is up there, which is the listening and what's going on with the listening, why we don't hear each other. There's the book, How, that talks about how the brain and neural circuits work. It's a pretty interesting book, not an easy read, but it'll explain how the system works and how the brain works and how neural circuits work and where behaviors come from. That's my book, How. Or email me and we can have a dialogue. And what else? I hope I taught you something.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I see we almost reached the end of our contracted time. So we can take maybe one comment before we release our presenter, Sharon-Drew Morgen. Maybe one comment. Okay, let's take that one from Asma. You can go ahead.
Yeah, it's time. Thank you for the presentation. It's interesting, and I was thinking when I have heard this idea of identity, I linked it with a lot of spiritual concepts. So if you have any things related to this about how identity making behaviors and the perspective of the spirituality, because that's also another perspective that I feel like that's really connected, and I never link that to the practice. I usually link that to my own self.
So all of my work is spiritually based. Thank you for understanding that. All of my work is spiritually based because as a child with a different kind of brain and people were trying to tell me what to do, it didn't match. And I had my own answers. And I realized as I became I was an entrepreneur and I started up a tech company and I trained 100,000 people. What I began realizing is that everyone's neural circuits are different. They're all different, and we all live with different beliefs and different norms and different mental models. Every single solitary human is different. So why would I try to tell you my way of doing things or what I think is right when you have an entirely different way of looking at the world? So all of my work enables other people to discover their own answers and where their answers lie. Now, sometimes there's an incongruence. So like, I was thinking I was trying to lose weight, but it was incongruent for my body. And it wasn't until I found the incongruence that I could fix it. So by leading people to their neural circuits, they can find their own incongruence and they can make their own change. So I enable people to have their own choice, their own change, their own skills. And my job as a servant leader is to enable others to be their best selves and have their best choice. So the whole thing is spiritual. And yes, thank you for noticing.
All right, so I think we've reached the end of our seminar. Sharon-Drew, I do want to thank you again. I think it was very, very well received. People here are certainly very happy with your presentation. So even though it was a small crowd, I think it was a very satisfied crowd in terms of the value that everyone has received from your presentation. And I think it's better that than a large group that does not actually get much value out of it. So once again, thank you, and we do appreciate the work that you've done or have done, and all the best for the future work in your future books. Thanks
Thank you,
a lot.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.